If there's anyone in the audience that will plan on speaking today, if you would please swear to an oath. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth to this commission? I do would be sufficient. Thank you. There are no cases on the agenda for today, so we'll move to communications. The first communication is the... Actually, don't know. Do we have this in the package, Char, on the PUD?
No, I don't think we do.
Okay.
I think it's just preliminary, I think.
Paul, do you have something on the PUD?
We do not yet, no.
Okay.
Mr. Klein is just here to communicate.
Okay.
He presented to the Planning Commission about 2 years ago, June of '08, I believe. At one point, he had looked at doing a single building, multi-unit residential, and then he decided that he liked a potential plan that would be a PUD instead, 3 separate buildings. And I believe since it's been about 2 years and he never submitted any PUD documents, he just wanted to reintroduce the project to the Planning Commission. There's at least 2 new faces on the Planning Commission since June of '08, and just to begin the discussion with you guys.
Okay. Mr. Klein, would you like to come sit at the table?
Sit over our podium, your choice.
I do have a rendering of what I'd like to do there, as well as some copies. So I just bring this.
Yeah, if you could just bring this forward, or okay. I appreciate it.
And this is on Hickory Street?
This is on Hickory Street, right behind C&E Grocery Hardware.
Okay.
And as Paul said, 2 years ago, I came to committee with this idea, and I've just been taking my time, slow. But my original plan when I came here 2 years ago kind of got changed pretty much the day that I walked in here. I met with John Valentor, and he gave me a better idea. Rather than a big box building, it'd be 3 smaller units that would look like houses along that property where there are other homes through there. The thing is right now that it's R1. Is that right, guys?
Correct.
And in order to do this, it would have to be rezoned or given a variance, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. Okay. My request is for that based on what the property is. It sits, pretty much at the foothills there of residential up behind it, but there is a large buffer of woods that would never be built on. I would think that, but in Athens, sometimes people build in pretty crazy places. But family residence right there is probably not the best thing, just due to, there's a semi that comes in there every week and parks right on Hickory Street to unload for C&E Hardware and Grocery. And to stand on my property and look at that, you look at the bundles of cardboard, and it's a business, and so it's not someplace I would desire to build a home to live in. But I think the design that John came up with here, kind of a courtyard situation with the 3 buildings, kind of buffering that kind of a view. There is an existing parking lot there on the property that would be utilized for the residents' parking.
Okay. Go ahead.
If I remember, how many units were you talking about? How many beds total? I forget.
12.
12 beds?
Total 12.
Okay. So
the number really hasn't changed at all. It's just the configuration to make it look more residential rather than a big, long building like on down the road on Richland Avenue, the big, long brick building that's right there on the street.
And I think as a PUD, you can pretty much put it in any R zone without a variance required, I think.
Correct. As a PUD, I believe the only variance he may need is variance for the lot size. PUDs are for 2 acres or larger. So variance, council would have to award a variance for less than 2 acres, which council did last year for the Madison Heights project.
How much acreage is this exactly?
It's just under 1 acre.
Just under 1 acre, okay.
Mr. Klein, and these would operate still kind of as, they would be rentals, but still sort of just a single family rental?
Right. I would think where it's at, it's going to be more single family than closer to town where it's going to be students. I do have other properties in town, and because I do have that, I have, my phone number is out there, and people call me, and I'm getting a lot of calls from grad students and various married people that are looking for housing and can't seem to find it other than our larger places in town that they don't want to live in. They want more of a residential type place.
Okay, question?
I think since you were here 2 years ago, you've pretty much demolished the houses that were on site.
Right. What I've done since I was here last was I went ahead and purchased the property, and then this past December I demoed the houses, the house and the apartment over the garage. They were in disrepair. That probably would have been not a wise thing to fix them up, so I went ahead and took them down, so it's just one level lot.
Okay. More?
Yeah, please.
I had a little discussion with Paul Logue on this a while back. First, when it came up to the horizon, when I say a while back, within the past week.
Okay.
I think some of the concerns, and I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good location. I think some of the concerns, of course, were runoff questions. But again, if you're not changing the footprint too much in terms of the parking lot, but the houses will change a little bit in terms of what goes on there. The other discussion, I think, was in-house at the staff meeting, or concern about some utilities that may go through some of your property lines. I don't know if we've checked into that or not. So any construction, we'd have to be cognizant of possible. I think there may be a water line or sewer line that cuts through there someplace. We're not sure. So that would be one of the caveats with trying to design something. Make sure it fits with that. We don't want to build a building over something we're going to have to tear up.
Oh, no, I definitely don't want to do that. I work for the gas company, so I know that's very important.
Yeah, okay. But that's the only thing that really came to mind at the time.
Okay. Well, one of the things I did was, of course, I measured the property or the structures that were there before, and it's only about somewhere around 500 square feet more by doing these three buildings than what existed there.
Okay.
Well, and for a PUD, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, they would still have to provide a civil drawing for that work. So, I mean, that should pick up on any sort of existing utility or work that would have to take place for it to...
detailed site plan would be required with elevations, etc.
I mean, I think I'm also accepting of, I mean, it's taking 3 lots and putting back in 3, what would typically be considered an R1 housing. So I think to me, it makes sense in that location.
The way I looked at it was, I mean, even though they're duplexes with 4 bedrooms, it could be 3 4-bedroom homes built there. So it's not much different than what, if I were building separate homes on each lot, something like that. So the pictures that are on the back, the third page, that's a picture of a property that I found here on Townsend and got to take a tour of it. I like the layout and the way it looks, and so I took a couple photos of it and attached it as well. It's kind of the look of what I was going to go for.
Any other comments or recommendations before Mr. Klein would proceed with the full application for a PUD?
No, I think it's a good idea. I think it will work.
All right.
Do you have adequate parking? I see parking 10 cars on this little...
One of the discussions I had with the 2 gentlemen here about a week or so ago was the one property that's closest to C&E would need a full basement, and it would become a garage under the property, of course, proper setback and apron and all that, which that area is still kind of there. It kind of dips down and still an area where the existing, or the garage that I just took down in December existed. So.
Would you anticipate how many parking spaces there? I mean, it says 10 cars here, so...
I actually think the parking lot can hold more than 10. I need to work with John Valentor on, because he just drew it up from the plat map or whatever, but we need to go there and measure and make sure and lay it out just right. But there's potential for more cars, I think, than the 10 that he's got drawn in. But, obviously, as we move forward, I would make sure there's at least the 12 and, a guest parking area or something like that for a couple guests. So.
Okay. And I'm sure John Paskey here will tell you, and Valentor will tell you what the requirements are for trees and all the other stuff. Yeah, so they're cognizant of it, so that shouldn't be a problem.
Other comments? All right. Well, I do thank you for your time on...
I guess the conclusion is to move ahead on this?
I would say so. I mean, I don't know, do we... it's been a while since we've had a communication on one, do we usually give a recommendation?
No,
I didn't think we usually vote on.
No, I think it's more informal, but
Yeah.
I think the consensus is to move ahead.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that.
And eventually, as soon as the paperwork's done, we'll get a case number on it, right?
Right.
Okay. Well, I'll work with John Valentor to start working on elevation drawings and utilities, and work with Paul and John and move forward with the steps I need to take then.
Are you expecting to sort of proceed, pretty straight ahead now, or do you
Yes.
think? Okay.
Yeah, that's my thought, that, depending on how long it takes to get to the official approval, because what I'm looking at is, this is something my wife and I are doing. We're not a big corporation, so timing is very important for us, because I don't want to finish these in October and not have any tenants to help me with the mortgage. So it's the timing is the thing, and so if I can finish them next year around the end of July, August, early September timeframe, where it can be feasible for someone who might need housing, that's pretty much my plan. So
Right. I mean, the key is also to work with planner Paul Logan, putting together your application,
Right.
and then hopefully by that point you wouldn't come to the commission until you have all of your paperwork and drawings in place. Typically, it may be sometimes the site plan or some civil work still needs to be done, but we can approve that with
Right.
following those conditions. So. It's probably a 2-week process once you submit it to Paul for it to go to the commission. So just keep that in mind as well.
okay.
Anything else? All right. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Next item in our communications is the City Council's request for a change in the zoning code concerning the keeping of chickens in the City of Athens. Kent Butler for the City Council had sent us a packet of information earlier in the week via email. Some of us may have had a chance to review, I hope. We also have the following packet, and this seems like some of this is the recommendation from the City Council on what they would like us to consider reviewing. Other parts are some of what Kent Butler had sent over. And we also have a few letters from constituents. It looks like a couple emails from constituents on the following matter. And I think those are dated today and yesterday. So if you want to take a quick opportunity to review it, I could also read them aloud in the record. Maybe more paraphrase. Go ahead.
You were going to read them aloud?
I could. Go ahead.
I got a call from Kent Butler, said he couldn't attend. He had something coming up at his work.
All right. Let me proceed. I'm going to go over what the recommendation or the request for the change in zoning code was from the City Council. As a little bit of background. This was dated, July 22nd this year. The request was on the 19th, Athens City Council voted to recommend the Athens City Planning Commission review zoning Title 230401, Section B. Consider amending regulations to reduce the 100-foot setback requirement and provide clarity on whether chickens, tractors are accessory structures. And at the last meeting, RJ, you were the only one absent, right? So what we had sort of decided to do was take a look at this recommendation kind of holistically. Okay, the two main parts are the setback and whether the chicken tractors are accessory structures. Consensus on the members of the Planning Commission was that the tractor itself counted as an accessory structure, and I know, Mayor, you had brought put together a section from code. Just
Next page behind the
structure.
memorandum.
Okay.
It's essentially the definitions in Title 99 as well as 23-1001. Really what you're looking at is in terms of structure. Basically, it says anything constructed or erected, use of which requires location on the ground. And I bolded that myself, or attachment to something a fixed location on the ground. Among other things, structures include buildings, mobile homes, walls, fences, and billboards. The main reason why I put that locations on the ground is because I think the argument of chicken tractor it was mobile and therefore would not be an accessory structure. But if it's on the ground, it has a location on the ground, I think it falls under a structure by definition.
Right.
And if it's not the principal structure of the building, of your lot, it's an accessory structure. The title above it, which is a residential, actually covers the section of the boarding and keeping of fowl farm animals, except in a building at least 100 feet from that. And that's the other. So there's two portions of the
Right. request
request from council. One is, is it a structure? The other one, changing that particular section of the code, which is 23041 B, I believe. I got my lettering correct, and that's the R1
Right.
zone.
Right. So, in summary, the sense is that even if it is an accessory structure, there's still a portion of code that describes a building for the keeping of fowl. So, irregardless of if we accept it as an accessory structure, there's already a portion of code that further defines where a building such as a chicken tractor or chicken coop could be located. And right now, that's still that 100-foot setback that City Council is asking us to consider.
And as to addressing the entire chicken issue, which of course is, whether to allow coops or anything in the city, I'd be leery, and I think Paul Lowe pointed this out along the way, the 100-foot setback, but we just changed that piecemeal. That does not tell us how many chickens are required in that area. So if we were to say, okay, 10 feet away, 20 feet, but we would, unless we adopt the legislation and start putting laws forth in terms of how many chickens, no roosters, slaughtering of chickens. Mm-hmm. This has to be put together. Just to say we're going to change the distance is not going to be adequate enough for that, because that 10 feet back from the lot line means I can put 100 chickens or 4,
Right.
unless we address that. And that's my concern. If some of the other stuff you got, one from Kent, recommendation for municipal regulations of urban chickens, basic chicken care requirements. What's of interest is the size of some of the areas there. Look at page 2 of that article. It says space, at least 6 foot by 12 foot by 6 foot high space and yard needed for coop and pen for 4 birds. And then an additional large fenced area for regular exercise. When they talk about an exercise yard, they say about 174 square feet per bird, which is about, I think we're at 180 for a parking space. So 1 parking space per bird. So we're back to parking again. But at the same time, you can see that if this is what's considered basic chicken care instructions, it's a little bit more, and I think John Paskey had mentioned along the way that just by saying the coop has to be certain distance, are the chickens free range or not? Can they be let out of the coop, the pen? Mm-hmm. And there's 3 different things here: coop, pen, and an exercise yard. It's just not a question of a coop being 10 feet away. So there's some issues that have to be looked at here. That I think. Well, that's all. Again, really, what's on our plate right now is a recommendation at. As the last sentence of the memorandum is, please return recommendation determination to City Council at your earliest convenience. So.
Right. I think the thing is the items that they're asking us to consider are too small in scope to define the whole issue of keeping chickens in the city. And I think just changing, like you said, just changing the setback or defining what a chicken tractor is not going to be sufficient to have a good chicken or keeping of any farm animal within the city limits sort of legislation. And that's why I had... if you looked over the Cleveland ordinance that Kent had sent over, it was rather holistic in scope, that it covered all those sort of items, and it was in one ordinance, which I think is something that we would have to do if we were to proceed in that manner. Mm-hmm. But as far as recommendations for the City Council, I would have to say I would be opposed to change... I guess the current one we have isn't effective either, because it sort of suggests that if you're 100 feet away, like you said, you could have 200 chickens kept in a small box. There's no definition of what.
Well, I imagine somewhere along the line, the health department or some animal
Right.
control officer would get involved if there was problems with too many chickens in one coop.
Right. Well, but so oftentimes it'd be nice to be prescriptive on what our legislation is rather than prohibitive after the fact. So, the Cleveland one is also in that packet. It covers what we talked about, some of the points that the mayor brought up, number of chicken, setbacks, prohibitions, definition of coops and cages, enclosures and fences. It goes on to include other forms of wildlife and things, which I'm sure once any chicken legislation is passed, we would have requests for the keeping of other livestock. It's something we probably should already consider ahead of time if we're going to proceed with crafting a new ordinance for keeping livestock in the city. Other comments? Go ahead.
And let me reiterate again, my concern, of course, is that we don't really have a full-time animal control officer within the city.
Okay.
So control of the dogs as well as the cats, and to add another species, I'm a little bit leery about. And I'm just one vote on this. I think the Cleveland one is pretty good. You can tell that they have made a distinction between chickens and goats and pigs because the square footage basically is...
Oh, yeah, drastically different.
Yeah. I see they actually have one for bees, too. I don't have bees in the city. I have them outside the city. So I don't have any city bees.
You just trespass. Any other comments, concerns from other members? Paula, Jay, Harry?
I have some reservations in regards to the chicken issue. Number one, disease. You have with the city of Athens, you have a additional question of the density of the population. You have a lot of students who live in here in tight quarters. From what I've been able to read from the material that the health department sent along, salmonella is a concern not just for egg ranches someplace off in the distance, but can happen when someone in a residential area doesn't really take care of the animals in their control. Runoff, if you're talking about feces that or whatever they might call chicken feces, I would be concerned with the topography that is Athens, that can go into the streams, into rivers here around the community. Property value, I talked with a couple of realtors in the area who said that from their vantage point that would make it a little bit more difficult to potentially sell homes to people, or to be able to sell your home as if you had a chicken ranch next to your home. A small issue, but nonetheless, I do think that while this may not be directly our concern, I think it does potentially stretch city government activity in terms of how it's going to be regulated, who is going to do the regulation, who is going to conduct. I understand that a proposed seminar was going to have to be conducted, or someone was going to have to get their permit and then have a class in chicken care. Who's going to conduct that class? Is it going to be a volunteer? Is it going to be somebody with more accountability from the city? I think those are some issues. I think that we're already stretched in terms of what we ask code enforcement, for instance, to do. I would imagine that health department is probably pretty stretched in this community. I do think I agree with one of the letters that was written in opposition, in that I think that historically there was a reason why communities began to separate themselves from rural activity as far as raising animals in a city environment, urban environment. And I do think we take for granted the fact that we've been able to control a lot of disease by separating general population from animals. And I think that is something that we need to consider. I don't think, for instance, that 10-foot setbacks are adequate. I think that if you're somebody who lives next door and you already have some sort of heart condition, asthma, things of that nature, I think that all of those things come into play if you're going to start to add chickens to the mix here in the city. The fact that some people still want maybe to have the chickens be able to roam in the yard. I think that would increase the possibility of feces being able to fly, to come off into the air and blow around the community. So yeah, I think there's just a number of concerns that I have, and even opening the door for that. Not to mention, as Nicholas and the mayor have mentioned in the past, you are opening the door for other livestock, other animals to be raised in the community. And I think that, to me, is one of the greater potentials of a problem, is what you open the door to, not just a chicken. If you're talking about a sustainability issue, I would see then why not allow goats? Why not allow rabbits? Things of that nature. I mean, if you're really going to go, whole hog, pardon the pun there, on the animal issue, then you're really, do we have an argument against that if that occurs? So that's an outline of my concerns.
Chair, I did invite, I'm sorry, Harry.
To follow up on RJ, I was concerned about the possibility of a runoff during the rain going through the coops and so on, or on the ground, and getting into waterways. Chuck Hammer can probably say I'm right or not, but the county requirements now for a home wastewater treatment process is that the effluent be absorbed on the property without running off the property. Now, can we make some provision like that for chicken runoff?
All I was going to say was that I did invite Chuck Hammer here to speak to the Planning Commission about any questions, or I didn't know if you wanted to jump right into the frying pan there, Chuck, or not.
Is this the frying pan problem?
Yes, that's right.
Where the fryers go.
Fry the broilers and the fryers. I have been in some discussions with Paula and Paul about the proposed ordinance, and I appreciate what RJ was saying about, that historically the reason there isn't livestock in cities is because of public health reasons, and that's true. That you look at some of the early public health regulations that applied in the city of Athens, and it was the exclusion of livestock. And so to separate out the livestock from this urban situation for that very reason, that there was recognized very early on as having negative public health consequences. And I'm sure that any well-drafted ordinance is going to take into consideration that there's going to be noise and there are going to be odors. Those aren't particularly public health issues, but they are a reality with chickens. Even if you don't have roosters, the hens make a lot of noise too. They have their moments. The odors are stemming from the manure by and large, and the manure is pretty serious with a chicken. It's indiscriminately placed. They don't have one spot where they manure. They just when the urge hits, they go. And when you have the manure, you will have flies. So flies, runoff would be one problem, where you have a rain event and runoff of the feces into a neighboring property or into the surface drainage. But the flies are another way that bacteria is transported from point A to point B. And that does have a health consequence as well, that the transport of the bacteria is what's going to cause the adverse health issues. With the keeping of the feed and the way the feed is given to the birds, it encourages vermin like mice and rats in those locations. So those are also well-known vectors of disease, and they cause other problems, physical problems as well, just with their chewing and the habits of the rodents. You also are going to have other predators that are going to be involved that are attracted to chickens, and we have raccoons all over the city, and they come out at night and you see them, and they find chickens quite attractive. They eat the feed, and they eat the birds, and possums as well, which are in the city, are going to be attracted to the keeping of the birds. It's just a fact of life out in the country that you got them and you have to deal with them. And I think that would probably aggravate that situation with those kind of predators. Crows are also attracted generally to the feed and the filth that's associated with the birds, and they aren't so much they aren't very destructive, but they can be noisy. The birds also harbor mites that can pester humans. There's a chicken mite that prefers to bite a chicken, but if it can't get a chicken, it'll hop on a person and cause bites. It doesn't spread diseases, but it does cause dermatitis and the scratching. You can get secondary infections. Fleas. And then the other thing, just on my short list here that I wrote up, was when you have the chickens, you're going to have mortality and dealing with the carcasses. Do people find it in a timely manner, or do they get grossed out when the raccoon, destroys the flock, and do they walk away from it, or those are just issues that need to be considered, because they do impact somebody that might be living nearby and might be ill-served by the poor judgment of the person that's taking care of the chicken.
Mr. Hammer, I have a son who has asthma. You've touched on some things already, but with a child with asthma living next door to someone who raises chickens, you're talking about, again, the odor. You're talking about what else that could impact him.
A lot of times people bed chickens in straw, and they're, if it's I don't think you're going to get aggravated asthma from the chickens themselves unless you have pretty close contact with them. But the mold from the bedding, if they're not kept in a place that's dry and kept clean, it's just very difficult to. There is a lot of dust associated with that, and the fecal matter, once it dries out, does get a little dusty, and so there's just. My point is that from the public health standpoint, there's a lot of potential negatives or real negatives about the keeping of chickens in a confined area, and there aren't any that I can think of, any positives, any public health benefits to the keeping of chickens in the city.
Well, the way you described it, it sounds like no dogs or cats, because what would be the benefit from a public health standpoint of having any animal that's not going into the bathroom in something that the city's going to be treating? Noise, dogs, feed, dogs, cats, insects or anything, fleas or things can impact humans. Mortality. We'd like our dog to live forever, but it's probably going to die. I don't see why this is any different from a public health standpoint.
Well, I think chickens are different than mammals in the way they behave. Dogs and cats have habits that are cleaner than birds. So that's just one fact, but you could make the argument that dogs and cats are a public health problem, but we got them already. I mean, they're here. I don't think there's any discussion about trying to create ordinances to remove cats or dogs from the city.
I think the other thing you have to, let's say that dogs and cats are a negative in terms of health in a community. I don't see any reason, though, to increase the possibilities, though, by introducing additional animals. And as Mr. Hammer said, historically, urban communities made a choice to continue their coexistence with dogs and cats. They chose not to do it with livestock and whatnot. So, I from that standpoint, that would, to me, what you're saying, negate itself, because why did we aggravate the situation by introducing more negative health aspects into the community?
Good.
In one sense, Chuck, we're really just looking at the setback issue and the tractor issue at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm not counting votes right now. I assume it's not going to change, because at the same time, I suspect there will be an effort or a push to actually look at some kind of code that will allow chickens. I don't know if we'd vote for that or not. It sounds like maybe yes, maybe no. I guess really what I'm going to call on you, ask you if something does formulate, because it can come out, it will have to go through us eventually as a planning commission and a council for ratification. If there is something formulated, would you be willing to vet it as for conditions? And I say that because I'm sure there'll be, after this is all said and done, there'll be another push or two for chickens and urban chickens. And whatever we put together, whatever anybody, committee puts together, we would want your expertise. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay. And I am not terribly in favor of it myself, just because we don't have control of the cats and dogs as well as I'd like. The issues that have been discussed in terms of this, I've looked at some of the ordinances that have been put together in other cities, and some of them are pretty comprehensive. The Cleveland one's quite nice, but there are issues I have within there. I think the Wisconsin one had a permitting system, but then it comes down to an argument, permitting with so many violations, noise, odor, or sanitary conditions. Then it becomes a question, that becomes a gray area, when is it an offense, and when do you revoke a permit? So those are the gray areas. If somebody puts something together, I want to make sure you're included in the discussion.
And my point really today is not, is to point out that there are certain realities associated with this that I think everybody ought to go into with their eyes wide open. And when there is an ordinance drafted, it ought to consider all these possibilities, because you want to prevent problems. You don't want to have a situation, and just the fact, the nature of the beast is that it lends itself towards problems if it isn't closely managed.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time, Mr. Hammer, and I appreciate you letting me play sort of devil's advocate.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's good.
One of the questions I have for the planner on this is, I brought this up maybe in an email communication a couple months ago, and sort of appreciate your sort of policy take on it. When we discussed a while back sort of an unfair burden that someone could go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, would be to say that my lot isn't 100-foot, I don't have a 100-foot setback due to my lot size, so therefore this unfairly burdens me, such as if you had a house and you couldn't fit it on a lot because it was of a certain size, that you could get a variance so that the house didn't have to be the same size that's permitted by that zoning. Mm-hmm. Could someone make that? I guess that you can make any argument you'd want, but is this something you would think the Board of Zoning Appeals would have to consider?
I might have John answer that. He deals more directly with the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay, well, that's fine. I appreciate it.
I would say yes. You could have a lot that's maybe 150 foot wide, so you don't have the 100 feet on each side, but it could be 400 foot deep.
Right.
And so therefore you'd have the adequate space, but it's not meeting the requirements. So I'd say yes, that's something that could go to the BZA.
As a general rule, a Board of Zoning Appeals should only hear an appeal based upon a unique characteristic to the actual lot.
Right.
Meaning it's not a typical 55 by 130 lot or something like that, or it has a unique
for that
feature
zone,
to
you're
it,
saying,
whether
okay.
it's a steep slope or a creek or something on it, to get relief from the zoning regulations. So
Okay.
I suppose somebody would have to make that argument.
Right. Any other comments? I'd like to go into that, but before There's no further discussion on it. What recommendation? Let me find the ordinance again, sorry. What recommendation would we like to make to the City Council? I think we'll do this in two steps and sort of go from there. One would be to put a motion whether to reduce the 100-foot setback requirement or not. The other motion would be whether chicken tractors or really any chicken housing, building that houses chickens should be considered an accessory structure. We could break it apart, or we could just look at it at one. I think it'd make more sense to break apart.
I'd agree too.
Okay. First motion is, I guess, I'm trying to think of how to word it best.
I would move that we do not reduce the 100-foot setback requirement as cited in 230401B. There's be no change.
I would second that motion with the condition that any change to this setback requires basically further research and new crafting of the new ordinance to accommodate. I think as it stands, just reducing the setback would not be sufficient. That's on that condition.
So is there a second? Need a second?
I guess I've added that condition. I don't know if that counts as a second as well. Sorry.
Do we need to hear maybe feedback first
Yes.
before we make the motions?
Well, we can put a motion then do discussion before we vote. So this would be a
Sorry,
discussion.
I'll second
No.
it.
Okay.
Is it appropriate to make a statement on that motion from the public or not?
I mean, it's always acceptable. I believe you were not here when I provided a note. So, sir, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth to this commission?
Oh, yes.
I appreciate that. If you could either come to the podium or take a seat at the table here so you can pick up on the microphone.
Basically, on the motion itself, if you reduce the
Keep it 3 minutes.
setbacks and so on, you have a number of lots here that are barely 40 feet wide. In some places, I'm thinking on the west side.
For the record, could you state your name and...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Name and address, I'm sorry.
Peter Hoffman Pinter. I live at 108 Columbia Avenue.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've lived there for about 40 years now. The problem is you reduce the setback, which is this proposal. You have a lot that's very narrow in some cases. Now, the people next door to them will essentially be with the chickens. You will have maybe 5 feet or 10 feet from the chickens on the house next door. That impinges the health hazard just mentioned. I was in Houston. I got very sick from droppings. These were pigeon droppings, but they're the same as the chicken droppings, just from the wind that blew them up when I was sitting on a terrace at the university. Number two, I think that it would strongly, in some areas, impinge property values, which I do not think the people next to the people that have chickens should take a loss on their property value because this person has chickens. Mm-hmm. I have another concern, and that is, of course, regulation. Right now, the code office is overwhelmed, if anything, and they cannot even get around to taking care of some of the complaints they have. That's another one. You'd have to beef up the code office. And another one that's sort of a little bit less important, but when people come to town and they bring their children here to go to school, I don't think it's going to it would impress them very much if they go around and they see a lot of places with chickens in the back, or for that matter, growing a cornfield in the front lot, which is also under consideration. And basically vegetables, they said, but corn is a vegetable. So those are my concerns. And the health one, of course, is very important. And you would just be aggravating it by this motion when you would narrow the setbacks. Thank you.
Thank you. Others in the audience that would like to provide comment? Go ahead, please take a seat at the table at the podium and state your name and address, if you would.
I
He's just paying attention.
I'm Beverly Flanagan. I'm chair of the West Side Neighborhood Association, but I want to point out that I'm not speaking for the association today. We've taken no vote. But a number of us have talked or communicated privately about these issues, and we do have many of the same concerns that have already been expressed. I'll just summarize very briefly 3 points. First of all, I grew up on a family farm in Minnesota. We always had chickens. We had 300 to 500 chickens. But they were several hundred yards from the house and the water well, so that they were downhill and downwind. Very important. They were free-range chickens, and I find it ironic that the people who are proposing this also typically are in favor of free-range everything. Chickens in a 4x4 or 8x8, whatever, coop are not free-range, even if you move the coop around the yard. This is not free range. Our chickens were. They were down in the woods by day. They went into their chicken houses at night, where they had separate feed troughs and high straw-filled nests for eggs. Food, feces, and eggs never mixed. They will in these cages, inevitably. That's very crucial, I think. Confinement is, of course, a major issue, and that leads to my second point, because we've already talked about the spread of disease. Histoplasmosis is the main lung disease at issue, but there are more too. Salmonella, we've seen in the Iowa chicken farms. Whether you have 3,000 chickens or 3, if they're confined, you have a problem. Our 300 chickens were not confined for most of their lives. I talked to a pulmonologist. Interestingly, we don't have a pulmonologist in Athens, but I know one from Europe who is now studying for her license here. She practiced pulmonology 12 years in Europe. She couldn't believe we would even consider having chickens in an urban environment. And again, she cited the various disease concerns. So I won't go over those again. They've been mentioned. A final point in my second point is that some talk was made of moving the crates around the yard so that the feces would become fertilizer spread uniformly through the yard. That still doesn't solve the water runoff problem or the odor problem or even the possibility that people and pets will walk in that material. A number of people have a real concern, of course, for children. The talk about making chickens pets, so to speak, for children so they learn something about nature is ridiculous. On the farm, chickens were not pets. We got the eggs and we sold the meat. They were not playthings, and I think that's such a crazy notion. My third major point, again, as many have pointed out, is the enforcement problem. We have difficulty enough enforcing our present law. In fact, the 100-foot boundary that is presently in place has not been enforced uniformly. Recently, chickens have been ordered to be removed, and some, I understand, have been voluntarily moved to the country, either temporarily or permanently, because, in fact, we've seen blogs with photos of chicken cages easily 10 to 20 feet from the neighbor's border, not 100 feet, at present. Now, if they've been moved, in fact, one blog has been cached, but you can recover it and see the photos for yourselves. So this is, again, it looks as though it's an effort to legitimize what is already happening, in fact, 10 feet, 20 feet from any neighbor's border. Minimally, a number of us would like to well, first of all, we'd like to get rid of chickens entirely, but if that's not possible at this point, minimally at least, we'd like you to keep the 100-foot rule and enforce it. In addition, we'd like to add that you specify 500 to 1,000 feet from any school, park, or playground where children typically congregate. And that you put in a specification, as some cities have, that all neighbors on all 4 sides, including across the street, agree in writing to the allowance of chickens on a particular property. And finally, that you require that feces be removed, not just spread across the lawn, but removed daily in a sanitary way. Some cities are doing this. But the problem, of course, is how would we enforce that with our present staff? if you're going to allow chickens at all, at least we need these minimal beef-ups, I'd say, even though it's not at issue today. Eventually, I think if we're going to keep chickens at all, we should beef up the regulations, not loosen them by any means. And by the way, we have found a number of cities that have said no to chickens, sometimes after they've tried it a while and found that it doesn't work well. So citing cities that allow this is not sufficient without looking into cities that have not allowed it.
Sorry, that's all the time we have.
That's good.
If there's other members of the audience that would also like to speak, you may take a seat at the table or stand at the podium. Okay. Any other further discussion or comments or feedback from the commission members?
I would like to hear the motion again since you modified it.
That's fine. Shar, can you read it back, or I can summarize if you're not there?
Paul Weil moved to not reduce the 100-foot setback requirement. You amended it to say if we do get a request from City Council to change the chicken ordinance, that we would require crafting a new ordinance. And then it was seconded by RJ.
Okay. Would there be anyone like to discuss that, how it is written now, or I guess how the motion is written now? Otherwise, we can take a vote. Comment? Okay. All those in favor of not reducing the 100-foot setback with the condition that City Council were to further request any additional modification, that we would have to redraft the entire ordinance to better suit the public health and welfare of the city. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay. It was all in favor, Shar, of not reducing the 100-foot setback. The second motion would be to clarify that I guess I move that the chicken tractor should count as accessory structure, but that it is also defined in the existing Title 230401, item B. Is there any other condition to that?
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor of categorizing the chicken tractors as accessory structure and already categorized as it is in the code? Sorry.
Aye.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, if
You want a discussion on it?
I just want to make sure, as far as like if you're voting no, you're not recognizing.
You're just not recognizing it as an accessory structure. And I guess that would mean...
No, wait a second, you are recognizing. Chicken
If
tractors
you
are...
vote no on this motion.
Oh, if you vote no. Okay, yes. If you vote no, you're saying
It's a strange... I just feel like they need to be separated.
Yes, I understand.
For clarity for City Council, while it may provide less clarity for ourselves.
Okay, no problem. So when we voted yes, we're determining that a chicken tractor is an accessory structure.
Exactly.
And has to follow the laws.
And if you're
both
voting
that-
no, you're saying
It's not.
It's not a tractor.
It's not, but
It's not a
and you're
structure.
not really changing how it currently stands either in the city code. So a no vote probably isn't doing much damage, one way or the other, in how chicken coops are regulated within the city. So unless you're in that 100-foot setback, it doesn't matter what you call it.
Did you vote, RJ?
Well, we had a little discussion. We're going to vote again.
yeah.
Okay.
For clarification. Yes.
All those who accept the second motion concerning the chicken tractors, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Again, no opposition, Char?
Okay.
So I expect to see that back.
I'll keep my file on it. That's growing thicker all the time.
In some form or another. I guess the only other comment I'd like to make on the ordeal right now is I'd hate for this turn into sort of an urban versus attitude. I feel like there's already sort of enough sort of town versus gown sort of thing that I wouldn't want to divide that way. I mean, I think you do see a lot of people citing the sort of, New York City or Seattle or, Cleveland. I never thought it was an exciting city, but hey, why not today? And then the no votes being often towns that are, small towns within rural settings. So I guess I wouldn't, any way that this is sort of written about. I wouldn't want to see it appear like it's a sort of urban bias over, people that come into the city every day. Go ahead.
I think what the arguments I usually hear for having chickens in the city is, again, is the sustainability aspect of it, the idea of knowing where your food sources are coming from. These are usually the arguments I see. I understand the idea of buying local, growing local, but there are, we have zones for different things. And again, we do allow chickens in the city. It's 100 feet from any lot line. So if you really want chickens, you have to, buy your neighbor's lots. It will work. Essentially, it's not that we're not allowing it. It's just that you have to reach a certain, size and situation on this. And I would be very leery of the zoning board giving variances for this because, to me, it's not unusual hardship. Making use of your property, well, you can't have an airport on an R1 zone either, unless you have a certain amount of space and distance. I don't even think you'd have one. I think you need an open space for it. So to say it's a hardship, I can't have a heliport in my backyard because my lot's not big enough, and I can't have a chicken coop either. That is not a minimal use of the property doesn't fall into that. Having been on the zoning board of appeals, I know the findings have to be set. So to say yes, I can't grow chickens because my lot's too small. I don't think it's something that should stand up, because I can't have a heliport in my backyard because the lot's too small too.
Well, but we don't allow heliports in all zones.
Yeah.
We do allow chickens in all zones, depending on the lot size. That's the only reason why I bring up that argument if someone is saying,
okay,
my lot size isn't that.
Well, again, okay, I understand. Heliports and chickens aren't the same thing. Chicken coops.
They're both outlandish. We can agree on that. Any other comments or communications? Okay. Next, we have reports from our city planner and development and economic and code enforcement. Any reports from the fine gentlemen?
I've got a few updates for you. If anybody's been to the community center over the last week and a half, you've probably noticed that the solar project is underway. That parking lot is, for the most part, closed off. They should have that wrapped up, hopefully by the end of next week, beginning of the week following that. They are going to be doing the Southeast Ohio solar tour in October, and the community center will be used as the staging area. So they have their own soft completion date so that they can show off our solar project to people who want to see solar installations around this region. So that's going really well. As well, this morning, through a grant that we worked on with the Athens County Soil and Water, Ohio EPA gave us about, I think, $8,000 or $9,000 to install rain gardens and to create a rain garden education program. We've got 2 large rain gardens that are being excavated and installed at the community center right now. They started this morning at about 8:30 or 9. They hope to have everything done and planted and completed by Friday, because we are expecting to get rain this weekend. And then in a week or so, we're going to put a smaller installation at the code office.
13th.
The 13th, which is part of this grant as well. With the code office one trying to replicate what somebody could do on a residential parcel, and what we're doing at the community center would be to replicate and demonstrate that somebody could have a rain garden to address their stormwater as a stormwater solution on a commercial property. So those are going really well. Those are going to look really good when they're completed. As well, the county is still working on a study for the potential for public sewer in that Radford Road, US 50 area. It's been talked about off and on for, 20 or 30 years now, so there's another study on that going down right now. Don't have much to report other than that's going on. I think that's the media's reported that for the last month and a half, too. And otherwise, in relation to the Planning Commission, I would request that at the next meeting we try to get back on a couple other issues on our agenda relating to the telecommunications towers, the lot coverage requirements, and the bicycle parking requirements. So just a request from me that we begin that discussion again.
Okay.
And if anybody doesn't have the literature for that, we can reprint it.
Okay.
Okay, just to bring everybody up to speed.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Paul. John?
Nope, not today. I chickened out.
Okay.
Can I make a motion? There any items on the agenda today that citizens would like to speak on, or items that we had not covered? You can do that now. Do appreciate people attending our meetings. There's no further items to add. We have announcements and other business. Our next meeting is set for September 15th, 2010 at 12 p.m. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
A couple of things in terms of announcements of the business. One is I'm going to try, we discussed this a couple of months back, or the past couple of months, of having a joint meeting with the City Council. Tentatively, I'd like to see if we can schedule that for the evening of the 27th of this month. Their meeting's usually at 7 o'clock. I think we're also tentatively trying to have our Public Works Director talk about long-range planning, I believe, the City Council and us at the same time. Mm-hmm. That way we'd all hear what we're thinking for the long term. We're hearing it from the same source at the same time. Right. It would also give us a chance, if we have other items to think about, and again, this is 2-3 City Council meetings away, if there's other items we think we should be discussing on this, and this would probably be a Planning Development Committee of the City Council, we might want to bring those up beforehand too. In other words, if we think there's something that we should be talking to council about, burning issue, that would be one thing to put on the agenda.
Okay. You said it was 7 p.m.?
7 p.m. is normal starting time. If not, check with Debbie Walker if it has to be changed. But usually that's historically what they've done is 7 and 7:30 for the regular meetings, but this would be a committee meeting.
Okay.
The other thing is there has been discussion every once in a while when I first got in office of moving the times for the Planning Commission. And I bring that up because I know sometimes, I think at one point we had Wednesdays for I
think it was Christine
Fall for
Thursday.
Classes.
Right.
Okay, so that's, it's been brought up to me again by citizens and others that an evening session might be more appropriate, but I leave it up to everybody in terms of that. I mean, I work here, so it doesn't make a difference. But as citizen volunteers, I really think if you think it would be more appropriate to move it to an evening or a better time, provided we have access to the room, this is something I would bring up for suggestions. It's not set in stone that we have to meet this time, okay? And I know many people, they would like to be here. They couldn't make it here because, constraints. I mean, you're chewing up your lunch times right now. I know that. But so it's just a suggestion, something to ponder. And if you have a time and place, it'd be something to consider.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
All right. Any other announcements? Okay. No further discussion on that point. Disposition of last week minutes, which are attached here in the end. If there's any corrections or comments?
Yes. I'd like to change the chicken coup to coop. Replace the U with an O. Yes. couple of places.
Coup d'etat.
Okay. Chickens are taking over the city. Oh, no.
It will be.
I don't have the minutes. Yeah, that might be a good one.
I didn't even see that.
I didn't even catch that.
Okay.
Just with the silent P. Any other corrections? Put forward a motion to accept last meeting's minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And I'm abstaining because
You
I
weren't here.
apologize.
Okay.
Don't rub it in.
I didn't bring it up.
There's no further items. This meeting is now adjourned.
Okay.